Right, good evening everybody, and welcome to this meeting. Nice to see so many people here tonight. Unfortunately, we haven't got our extended audience tonight because the server's gone down and we're not broadcasting live. Although the proceedings of this meeting will be broadcast on YouTube later, but we can't do it live tonight. And equally, we will not be collecting votes from outside the meeting either. So it's very important you are here, and indeed, if at all possible, you should always attend these meetings. It makes for an interesting exchange of views. Okay then, that's where we are now, and we'll have a statement on the general crime in Haverhill from Inspector Perry.
Thank you very much. The general message I've got is a really positive one. Total recorded crime, and I'm going to talk about Haverhill Town now, only Haverhill Town. Total recorded crime for Haverhill Town this year, so far since April the 1st, is 741 crimes. That compares to our 3-year average of 786, so we're 45 crimes below where I'd expect us to be and where our average would be. Total ASB incidents so far this year, since April the 1st, is 464. And that's down from our 3-year average of 645. So we are considerably down on antisocial behaviour incidents. Just to go through some of the general crime categories that we've got. Sexual offences so far this year, we've had 14 in Haverhill Town compared to an average of 18, so that's good. Robberies, we've had 3 so far this year in the town compared to an average of 5. Vehicle crime, we're way down. We've had 56 this year compared to an average of 87. Criminal damage, again way down. We've had 148 compared to an average of 186. And public order offences, again we're down. 39 so far this year in Haverhill compared to an average of 46. But what I'll talk about now is some of the ones that have gone up. Domestic burglary in Haverhill Town. We've had 29 so far this year, and our average that I expect to see is 23. Some of you will probably remember we had a huge spike of burglaries. I have talked about it at previous meetings where we were way above where I'd expect us to be. Now that person is locked up, we're gradually coming more in line with our average. We are still above it. It's probably going to take us another few months to recover to what our average should be. 29 burglaries sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, really, but we are getting back to a situation where we're only getting 1 or maybe 2 a week, rather than 4 or 5 a night, which is what it was when it was at its peak. Another offence that's gone up this year is shoplifting, and that's gone up considerably. We've had 92 shoplifting offences this year compared to an average of 66. And I put that down to a small group of professional shoplifters here in Haverhill, and we're doing our best with the town centre beat officer we've got stood over there, Les and Mark, to put operations in place to crack down on those professional shoplifters. Certainly we've had some success. 2 or 3 of the main players have been locked up, which I'm delighted at, and when they get locked up the offences come down, but they don't stay in prison for very long. They get let out and the offences go up again. So part of our job as the SNT is to get ahead of the game with those people that we know are going to come out, we know are going to return to Haverhill, and we know we need to get locked up again if they carry on with their offending. And another offence that's gone up considerably is drug offences. That's 51 this year compared to a 3-year average of 32. 2 reasons for that. Well, one main one, and that is we're being far more proactive. We're getting hold of people far better. We had a covert operation that's been commented on by some of the social media. We had Mark was involved in that, wore his best Chelsea shirt and went up and with a covert dog and some other covert officers. I think it took about 30 seconds for them to be recognised as Old Bill, but they did some really good work, put in loads of really good stop searches led by Matt Gilbert, who I'm going to introduce in a minute as the new SNT sergeant. But it's work like that that gets us some of these good drugs detections, and we're definitely going to need to go on and do more of that sort of work. So in general terms, most of the crime categories are going down. Some of them are down by a considerable way, but there is work to do on some of the ones that have gone up, particularly domestic burglary. If we get another series, we need to be really quick to crack down on the offenders. because nearly every time we get a string of burglaries, it's a Haverhill offender that's committing the offences. So in some ways that makes it good for us because they're relatively easy for us to cotton on to who they are and get hold of them. I'm glad that we don't seem to have travelling criminals from Lincolnshire and London and Cornwall and whoever knows where come to Haverhill, commit offences and then disappear, because that makes it very, very hard for us to get hold of them. The beauty of having a Haverhill offender committing Haverhill burglaries is that eventually we get hold of them, and our job is to get hold of them far quicker next time. And also the drug offences. We need to really get a handle on what's happening in the town with drug offences and get those offenders locked up as quickly as we can. So that's my general report on crime. I'm very, very willing to take questions on any aspect of general crime in Haverhill, should you wish to ask.
How many traffic-related offences were recorded?
Sorry?
How many traffic-related offences were recorded?
That's not part of what I've got on here, unfortunately. It doesn't come. I've got crime figures here. I don't have traffic-related matters.
Can that be available? Parking tickets, legal parking tickets.
Parking tickets in town.
Is it
That's
improved?
something I could bring to the meeting should the meeting wish us to have that. Something we could record in the SNT office. Yeah, we can do that.
Maureen.
Yes, thank you. Just for clarity, and you'll know why I'm asking, but if you know where a drug dealer lives and you do a search and nothing's found, how often can you go back? Or I think I got the gist that you have to then go to court for another search warrant because obviously they're very clever. The one that I'm talking about has lived there for some time and most people know that he's dealing, but you can't seem to catch him. So how does it work?
So, starting point for nearly all of our warrants are information that comes in from the public.
Right.
Somebody will say, my next door neighbour is dealing cannabis, or my next door neighbour gets lots of visitors. And if we get enough of that type of information, somebody from our intel unit will then come to me and say, I've got all this information, I want to get a warrant in front of a magistrate, will you sign the paperwork? And if it's good information, I will nearly always say, in fact I do nearly always say, yes, I'll sign it. It's then taken to a magistrate who will sign a search warrant, and then either the SNT themselves or someone from our proactive unit will then lead a warrant at an address. The unfortunate thing with drug dealing is that we need to be lucky. We need to find some drugs in the house when we go in there. And at particular times of the day, you're more likely to find drugs. Sometimes, particularly days of the week, you're more likely to find drugs. Recreational drugs, like potentially cannabis, there's more likely to be some at the weekends. Drugs like heroin, crack cocaine, the users of those drugs need it any time of the day, any day of the week. So it really is just pot luck. Unless we get really specific information, like a bloke in a blue Renault will turn up at this house at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday every week with what I believe is a load of drugs. Then we wait at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday and grab hold of him when he comes out. But a lot of it is luck. Because if it's a drug dealer dealing from a house, that's something that attracts attention, and we do get a massive information from people in Haverhill who are not happy to have drug dealers living next door or just down the road. But the next part is for us to be lucky and to find some drugs in the address when we go in.
Okay.
Is there, you mentioned about the shoplifting. Is the reason for the increase in shoplifting is because you're doing well with the drugs? You know, so they can sort of shoplift for more money, or is it just general sort of increase? I don't know. Do you know the reason really? That's what I'm trying to get at.
If I had to profile who your average shoplifter was, it would be somebody that's addicted to Class A drugs. So, for example, heroin, crack cocaine, or has some other sort of addiction. In general terms, and this is only my opinion, I've got no scientific research to back it up, the shoplifting offences have gone up, and some of the other offences have gone down because our drug addicts are finding it particularly easy to get away with shoplifting. They can commit 10 offences and maybe get caught for one. When we finally manage to arrest and convict some of these professional shoplifters, they'll admit to a whole string of offences that have happened over the past 3 or 4 weeks. Some of the shops in town, I'm afraid to say, have an exceptionally lax approach to shoplifting. They don't report any shoplifting to the police. They can have somebody come in the shop 5 times in a day, they can shoplift 5 times in a day, and they will not report that to the police. Which makes it a very, very attractive crime to professional shoplifters. They know they can virtually do what they like and get away with it. So part of what we need to do in the SNT, and I again look over to our colleagues from Town Centre SNT over there, is to try and persuade those shops to have a more professional attitude towards shoplifting. Some shops are very good, they've got their own security officers, they report it straight away, they've got good quality CCTV, and it's those sort of shops that allow us to convict, finally, some of the shoplifters. But we're not being helped, if I'm honest, by some of the shops in town who do not seem to take shoplifting seriously. They just write off any losses, which amazes me.
Yes.
Yeah, with regard to drugs, are you what patrols in the residential estates? We're part of Cutbury Residents Association, it's been brought to our attention that there's 3 particular areas on the estate where there is thank you. Drug offences going on, and people can't feel that they can't walk through there during daylight hours with people smoking dope, and they don't want to walk through with their kids. So I just want to know.
If you could give us some specific information, we'd be absolutely delighted to carry out operations in that area. The plainclothes operation that I talked about was in your particular area.
Yeah. We've got one lady who's actually having to walk home a different route from seeing her dad because she can't walk through there because this cloud of smoke, she's got to take her children and buggies through. So.
As I said to Maureen earlier, the starting point for virtually all of our operations is getting information from the public. So please let us know exactly where you mean. And I'd be delighted to put as many resources as I need to into cracking the drug problem.
See you after.
Any more? In that case then, we'll move on to item 3. And I think you're going to introduce Matt.
I nearly took my microphone off. This is Matt Gilbert. He's the new SNT Sergeant for Haverhill and Haverhill Rural. Delighted to say he's got a lot of experience at Haverhill. He was here for quite some time for me when I was a PC, both PCs together. Really good bloke, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with the SNT over the next couple of years.
Good evening, hello. Sergeant Matt Gilbert, like the Inspector said. Please bear with me, my first such meeting. Pleasure to be here, and I'll go through a statement based on the previous SNT priorities. The first one that is marked on the agenda was the illegal drug taking, attention to Worthing Place, the airplane park and the recreation ground. Pleased to say that my officers carried out a large amount of patrols in those areas. The figures I've got in relation to that is that 79 patrols were carried out of the recreation ground since that last meeting, 58 in Worthing Place and 50 in the aeroplane park. In relation to those patrols, 10 encounters which are when an officer has cause to speak to an individual based on information they see or by informants calling us. There's the 10 encounters that were made. We had 14 stop searches. Part of that was based on the operation that Inspector Ferry alluded to a short while ago. So we stole some of my thunder there, in that we had the covert operation and we carried out a number of those searches all over the town. We had one positive on that occasion in relation to a small amount of cannabis that was seized, and there was a previous cannabis seizure prior to that operation, and the youngster that was found with tobacco, obviously underage. Moving on to the second priority, which is reducing burglary dwellings and provide reassurance patrols to hotspots. Pleased to say, did see a decline in burglary dwellings. Notably there was one at the end of June, and then following on from that, I'm glad to say there wasn't too many burglaries or attempt burglaries. The next one we had was an attempt in the Withersfield Road area with a couple of suspects, unfortunately, due to lack of information, weren't able to progress that any further. We had a further one on the Clements estate with a mobile phone taken due to an insecurity. Unfortunately, no more further leads in relation to that. And then the latest one, which I think was in the last week, one in Ratting Road with a known suspect, so inquiries are ongoing in relation to that one. Again, a lot of patrols carried out, around about 47 dedicated patrols carried out in the area, consisting mostly of the Chalkson estate, which is by vehicle and on foot. And I suppose some of that ties in nicely with the first priority, which covers the Worthing Place and the aeroplane park on that estate. Third priority, last but not least, was to reduce dangerous and illegal cycling on pavements in the Haverhill town centre. Very straightforward. A lot of patrols carried out through the town, which is on a daily basis by my staff, and 11 warnings given. I understand, talking to my staff, that most of those were youngsters, which unfortunately does make life a little bit difficult, but at the same time they can be educated accordingly. So that covers the results of the priorities set last time. Is there any questions in relation to those at all?
Yeah, the aeroplane park. I had a report about 5 weeks ago that there was some needles in the actual flood park area in front of the aeroplane park. Unfortunately, they reported it to me about a week after it happened.
Sure.
But I took a walk over there and looked around just in case. And I saw a park manager there, and he told me that they clean up that area. You know, they lit a pit all around the area and the aeroplane park. And I'm just wondering if there's any way that if they see any needles or what have you in there, because you know children go over there to play, very young children, if they could report it to the police, the park keepers or the litter pickers, whoever it is that does that area.
Yeah, I'd like to think they would do. I've had some correspondence from the gentlemen from the waste management side of things. Nothing like that's come up, but other areas of the town have. But so they're more than willing if they wish to do that. I don't know if they do that on a sort of weekly basis anyway, or whether that's something they just tidy up and that doesn't come to us. If it did filter through to us, then obviously we'd know if we've still got an ongoing problem there, because obviously during the fact that I've just gone through those facts and figures, the patrols carried out, but there aren't. Those amount of people sitting there, either injecting or using other drugs in that area. Obviously, it's common sense that ultimately can't always be there, and when they are doing it, but yeah, if we're made aware that there are needles in that area, at least we know there's still a problem, and they should be telling us we'll get that cleared up as soon as possible.
Well, come in on that.
Yeah.
It's, I've spoken to one or two of the people that do clear up in that area, and if there's any needles there, they have to go in a special bag and they have to use special gloves. So if there's any needles in that area, it's quite easy for them to report it.
That's fine. Yeah, they have to put them in a special container like we do. Yeah.
Any more questions for Matt?
Just one from me, probably. What's your view in terms of whether those still need to be worked on or not? Something we forgot to ask at the last meeting.
Starting at the top, I think we've done a good deal of work on those areas, and talking to my colleagues, they feel that if anything, we've probably exhausted those, unless obviously any residents have a different take on that. Reducing burglaries fitting quite well with force priority in relation to that. Again, a number of suspects were detained throughout the force, and that's sort of seen a reduction in burglaries per se. And then again, with reducing the dangerous and illegal cycling on pavements, I think we have exhausted that. Obviously, it's something that we will still keep an eye on. We've got officers patrolling the town all the time, so that is something that we can always educate and deal with anyway. So it'd be quite nice to have some new priorities, I think, which will be good for residents who might have some other further issues, and also for my staff to actively target in response to any other new issues.
You can't forget my name. Just one point. When we talk about the burglaries and we read about the articles, mostly electronic computers, tellies, etc., do we know where they get rid of them? Do we know who's receiving the goods and where they're selling them? Do we go that far?
We do. It's not always easy because obviously a lot of that is based on information that we get. There are a number of outlets that obviously we become aware of, and we will make inquiries, and I think there might still be a dedicated officer that will see these inquisitive crimes such as the burglaries and the thefts with high value stuff, and also like with catalytic converters, which obviously is a current one at the moment as well. And there's certain premises that we will, an officer will make phone calls and inquiries and see if anyone has brought such items in. So there are those, that avenue that we can take. In terms of any other people that might be receiving those items, we do get bits of information come through from various establishments, public houses and the like. We're trying to actually identify who's responsible. We can only go by the information, as good as it is, that comes through to us, unfortunately.
You was talking earlier about the shoplifting in the town, and some shops are not as proactive as others. Is there something we can do to help them along the way?
I know.
I'll turn myself off. Mark, as town secretary officer, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, they just done a long bit of
Right, turn up, Julian.
So it's probably more appropriate for him.
Yeah, basically we have a system called Shop Watch Online. It's, as it says, online. It's a very good system. There's a cost implication of approximately a couple of pounds a month. If each shop would just join that system, that scheme, then that would certainly help, I think, the whole town. What actually happens, when I come on duty, I check the crimes, and any crime which is retail related, I will do a little synopsis of each and every crime with regard to retail theft, and I'll put a bulletin through to every premises that's a member of that scheme. So they know exactly what's happening. I can't name names, obviously, but they know basically how these things happen, the modus operandi, etc., and the sort of things they should be watching out for. The other thing it does for us is we are allowed to vote online to actually ban certain individuals from the shops. And that's throughout the whole town, provided they have been actually prosecuted and they're prolific. That in turn allows us to put photographs onto the scheme itself, so they can actually watch for these people entering the premises and ban them accordingly if they're trying to get in. And that's about what I'm after. If I can get every shop to join that scheme, or as many of the big ones anyway, those that have been affected, and I think we're part way down the line there, to be honest with you. We will certainly do all we can to help the premises, the retail businesses, but we do need a little bit from them as well.
Any more? Right, move on then. And now we're going to take the forms that you've been filling in as you came in, and collation of up to 9 priorities, and then we'll vote on the priorities there to get the 3 priorities which will go forward as priorities for the coming 3 months.
Right, we've got 8 priorities instead of the 9 that we hope to get, but we don't always get 9. The first one is drugs in Haverhill, especially Parkway Estate and the Green area. Number 2 is parking issues around Burton End. Number 3 is speeding in Shetland and Hollands Road. Number 4 is antisocial behaviour by cars and mopeds around town. Number 5 is antisocial behaviour in Strasbourg Square and possible drugs use. Number 6, more patrols of empty boarded up buildings to limit damage and ASB and the risk of fire. And speeding through great ratting. And number 8 is shoplifting. You should all have a piece of paper with 9 boxes in there. So if you'd like to put your 3 priorities in boxes 1 to 8, and then what there is a ballot box up at the front here. Once you've put your 3 priorities on your form, you just fold it in half and put it inside the box.
For those who don't know me, I'm Pat Hanman, Town Councillor. Right, I'm reading out every one of the numbers, 1 to 8, on the votes and how many votes there are. Number 1, 14 votes. Number 2, 3 votes. Number 3, 2 votes. Number 4, 10 votes, sorry. Number 5, 11 votes. Number 6, 2 votes. Number 7, 1 vote, and number 8, 9 votes. So the top 3 are, with 14 votes, number 1, number 4 with number 5 with 11 votes, and the third one is number 4 with 10 votes. Okay, I'll read them again, the highest 3. Number 1, 14 votes. Number 5, 11 votes. And number 4, 10 votes. They're the 3 priorities. And sorry, it's just so the highest one is number 1, which is drugs in Haverhill, especially Parkway Estate and the Green. And number 5 is 11 votes, which is antisocial behaviour in Strasbourg Square and possible drug use. And the last one is number 4 with 10 votes, which is antisocial behaviour by cars and mopeds around the town. So they're your 3 priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. So that's what's been decided, the 3 priorities for the next 3 months. Of course, that doesn't mean we're not going to produce anything else. It's just where the resource will be placed first. So, any other comments from anybody? Chris?
How are you going to tackle the antisocial behaviour by cars and mopeds around town? What are you going to achieve? How are you going to achieve it?
It is quite a wide. I haven't got a mic on. It's coming through, but it is quite a wide priority, and where we tend to do best is when we're quite specific about things. So we may have to. I'll sit down with Matt after the meeting. We might have to discuss some specific areas. I'm thinking about areas that have been complained about a lot before. The High Street has been complained about vehicles in there. Greenfields Way, the roundabout at the top there, that's always a favourite as well. So we might have to concentrate on
Hollands Road.
We might have to concentrate on some of those particular areas that have been favourites at meetings over the years.
Can you stick number 2 in that one as well?
Yeah,
because it's the same difference, isn't it?
It's the same thing.
It's the parking, the antisocial behaviour of the cars, the speeding.
I don't see why not. I don't see why
And it's extremely dangerous. People not take it seriously enough. I think until somebody actually hurt. There's already been one child run over on the crossing there. And until you get that
There's an SNT meeting just on traffic.
Ross has written that down, so Burton End will be included in one of our priority areas.
Right, well thank you very much ladies and gentlemen for your contributions tonight. And we look forward to seeing as many of you as possible at our next SNT public meeting, which will be on the 8th of December at 7 o'clock in this room here. And hopefully we'll have all the technology back up then. John Pavis, coming. and we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.